Welcome to Upturned Table, and today we have another unboxing of something we've been waiting for a while, but have already played, mysteriously enough. Here it is, the second case file for the Blade Runner RPG. So this is case file 2, Fiery Angels. And we pre-ordered this, the physical copy has arrived, but of course when you pre-order from Free League, they send you the digital version. So we played the digital version online because the group that we did the first case file with is online. We play over Foundry. So we've been waiting for this for a while. So let's take a look inside. And so just to give you a little bit of, let me take the plastic off first. Maybe that will help. All right. Well, it doesn't help that much because they went with a very glossy cover for the box. But here we have it. So yeah, these are just individual case files, so not so thick. So just so you understand, this is not a standalone product. This is a second adventure for the Blade Runner RPG. So you will need either this, their original starter box, which has these rules in it. So kind of an abbreviated rule booklet. Basically, it's all the rules just without the fluff, like the setting information and things, and maybe also character generation. Yes, so no character generation because, so the first case file is in this box and there's no character creation rules because they are pre-gen characters for you to play. They kind of match the roles that you would need for this case. So you'll need either this or just the core rule book for Blade Runner. So this is character creation, background setting, everything kind of completely. And there's another expansion for the Replicant Underground coming this year. So I'm looking forward to that. So you'll need one of these two for this. And this Blade Runner, so it's not the Year Zero system. It's the rank dice system similar to the Twilight 2000 release that they did. So they have D6 through 12, and your abilities or things are ranked based on that. So you kind of have to memorize that a D6 is a D, a D8 is a C, all that good stuff. So let's take a look at the back of the box first to see how they're promoting it here. So fiery the angels rose, and as they rose, deep thunder rolled around their shores, indignant burning with the fires of Orc. So, yeah, of course, the William Blake poem that Roy Batty quoted at the end of Blade Runner. So following the same deluxe format and packaging as the award-winning Case File 1, Electric Dreams, included in the Blade Runner RPG starter set, Case File 2, Fiery Angels, features a new thrilling investigation scenario and a host of in-world handouts, photos, maps, and more. This new investigation starts off with the Blade Runners assigned to question a suspect arrested while trying to infiltrate the Wallace Corporation memory vaults. The case leads the team down a perilous path that explores the boundaries of replicant technology and its consequences. The player characters will need to contend with an array of physical, mental, and moral challenges. So the box set includes a beautifully illustrated and detailed scenario book with locations, characters, events, and leads to follow, 11 handouts, including a variety of in-world artifacts and Esper photos, 7 full-color maps, a custom manila envelope for the players to keep their evidence safe in, and then 14 high-quality custom cards for the non-player characters. And then they give us a little content warning down here. The Blade Runner franchise deals with dark and existential themes, and this role-playing game is no different. The stories told in this game can be violent and distressing, and raise issues relating to personal morals. This game is not intended for children. And this is, I thought this was a little bit funny too, onto the barcode. 2 to 5 players, ages 14 and up, 180 minutes. I think that's a little optimistic. I think it took us a long time. I think we ended up about 12 hours. That's a little bit more. So let's take a look inside. And yeah, nice presentation, nice glossy. So, of course, matches what they've done with the book. They went with glossy for everything, which sets it apart from a lot of the other things that they've done, which have a more matte or the linen finish on them. So here's everything all side by side. So it looks nice. The presentation is very consistent. let's see what is inside. So as I said, we played this. You can watch the live stream of our sessions for this case file. And what I'm going to do is just kind of go through the components included here so everyone can get an idea of, what's included and how it all works when you're playing in person. The digital version works very well for playing online, and there are already for Foundry and a number of other VTTs, there are already packages and modules to allow you to play the starting rules and character sheets and stuff. And it's very thematic and very, very nice for most of the VTTs that I saw. So I'll put links to the live stream under here, and then I'll give you a time to jump forward to when we actually go through the case file itself. So that'll just be for the game runners, as they're called. That'll be for the game runners. And so you can skip ahead and then just kind of do the final thoughts at the end. So I'll give you a time code and also give you a link to let you know if you don't want to spoil it, if you want to play this and not spoil it. And of course, that would mean, don't watch our sessions because that'll spoil the heck out of it. Although I'm sure your playthrough will be greatly different. So here, protecting the cards and the silica gel is the games catalog, of course. Always these get more and more as the years go by. These get more and more nostalgic, and you realize, how much they've been up to. And so here are the cards that they're talking about. So these are nice. They give the an image, the character art for the NPCs and their names. So let's just open this up. It's nice they're not shrink wrapped. They'll be in better shape, and you can actually get them back in there. Oh, great. And they're also presented, because in the book they reference them as show the players mugshot A. And you'll show them and they'll see this guy. So it's a little bit different. It's trying to match that same style, but a little bit, the character art is a little bit less in this one than the first one. So here's a piece of character art from the first case file. You can tell there's a little bit of a change of artist, a little drop in quality, maybe a time table. And if you know who that is, oh no, why would we have that? And Coco from the first case file. So these are really nice quality. You can see they're not glossy. They've got a nice matte finish. And the publisher. And they're the Aurelian. If he survived, that's a thing that's going to come up. And Doc Badger. And so all of them are just consistent art and just give their letter designation. So you don't have to spoil any of this. You can go through them this way, so no one's going to see any faces that they may recognize. And you can just refer to them by their alphabetic reference. So that's a really good idea. So you're not doing this and everyone's like, hey, who's that? Oh, we're going to see. Oh. You don't tip your hand. So these are nice. Yeah, nice quality. And of course, these are included digitally. So you can use them as, digital handouts, and you can pop the character art up, and you can even make these into tokens because, you're going to be probably fighting some of these people. All right. So yes, same presentation as the rules and case file 1. So this is, identical to Electric Dreams and their icon on the back. So we'll just do a really quick, so they're similar. And of course, they're repeating some of the nice Martin Grip art. So some of the locations repeat, and there are things that follow through. Oh, that's nice. They even give you a little index to look things up, and nice and glossy. So it doesn't look great on camera. But so here's our case file. We'll go through this page by page for game runners so they can kind of see what they're in for, because this takes a little bit of planning. It's a tricky one, or so we found. All right, and here's the manila envelope to keep all of your handouts in. So the RDU rep detect unit for the LAPD. So you won't know what any of this stuff is yet. So hopefully it will, just want you to see the quality. This is a nice thick envelope. It's actually not paper. It's a card stock. So it won't get worn out using it repeatedly. I think just a regular manila envelope, although that might be fun. We'll take a little bit of a beating. All right, here we go. So these real world props. So the only thing that I thought was, some of the choices are a little bit odd because they want to make these physical things. So some of the things that you find, So something like this, perhaps, that you find somewhere, it doesn't, of course it works, but it could be a physical object or something that, that they couldn't replicate because it's not going to be printed on paper. But when you're doing this digitally, there's a lot of other maybe evidence that you could use that wouldn't be, because when they were looking at some of the Esper photos of the crime scenes, they were like, hey, what's that? What's that? What's that? And it's like, well, it doesn't have a handout. But if you look for things that possibly are printed on paper, those have handouts. And so here are the, oh, this is nice. The empathy test table. I don't know why you would need that. And then a personnel file. And these are glossy because they're meant to be on a screen. You're being presented with these on a screen. And these, and they also do a nice job. You can have everything face down, and similar to the cards, they label them as this is handout H, this is handout A, give the players handout A, show the players mugshot A. So the book does a good job of that. So you can keep these all kind of concealed in this way so that you're not spoiling anything. This is something, and they give you multiple copies. Something I love is the newspaper. I almost want to just crumple this up so you can just throw it out on the table for the players. So a nice copy of the front page of the Independent Sentinel. So this all has things that are connecting you to what's going on during the investigation. So a couple, that's nice. A couple of copies so they can pass these around, and they can exist on the desk, and a desk of other NPCs or things, and so they can be noticed at any time. The nice thing about how they do these case files is because you've got so much paper on the table, when you're physically playing this together, you're throwing things out there. And so your table ends up looking like a desk, a detective's desk would look like, covered with these things that they're trying to make connections to. And it works okay digitally, but I really think in person there's a lot more, because if this is sitting out the whole session, and they've been talking and they've run into somebody and they've seen their mugshot and they're like, hey, wait, she was in the paper. What was the article? What were they talking about? Oh, they've been already talking about this. Okay, let's, so it may help them decide where to go next, how to kind of scale or the scope or the focus of their investigations. And it works nicely because it's always out. Once it's revealed, once the character is discovered, it sits out on the table for the rest of the sessions, and can really, in kind of a very realistic way, key the players into things that are going on. So here are the Esper photos. And I've made some mistakes in this case file, but a couple of nice things that they do is after they do tech rolls examining the Esper photos, they can get detailed information. So the back, you've got to be careful, a little bit more careful with these. So it's marked, of course, as handout D, but it's only if you successfully roll with your tech skill that you get to see the extra information. And sometimes I didn't I presented them in the wrong way. And some of them don't have, there's not identities or anything to get, and sometimes they're on separate handouts. But again, because you're viewing these on a screen in the game, and you can get a physical printout, which would probably be glossy as well. But these have a glossy presentation, which is nice, and it separates them from things that are real world, how they would be printed in the real world, like the newspaper and stuff. So here is all of our handouts and physical evidence. Is there? Yeah, that's everything. So like I said, with the mugshots and this stuff scattered on the table, it's very fun to have that constantly there, and it's building as the time is ticking away, and they're trying to put pieces together and figure out where to go next. It works quite well. So I'm glad that they do this, and of course, this you can carry from session to session, the things that they've discovered so far. So you clean up the table, put everything in here. The stuff they haven't discovered yet, the game runner can keep in the box. And here's some maps. And of course, these aren't grid maps. These are maps of locations. And they have zones. So smaller locations, of course, will basically be one zone, and maybe a room would separate a zone. And again, they give you you can keep it face down until you're using it. So we'll just run through some of these. There are some, if you've played some perhaps 90s games of Blade Runner, they include a lot of interesting characters and details. They're, of course, much older now, but it's fun to, some spoiling locations, but you'll never be able to figure out their significance. So nice, kind of semi-gloss, kind of a satin finish, so they can handle some, if you maybe even some writing on here with some white, if you get white paint markers or something, you can do some marking. But basically, you're using zones, and the if any combat happens, the locations are abstracted, so you don't have to count squares or anything. So nice, they include all the locations, and quite large. These are all fold-out maps. Of course, the Esper photos were just a single kind of A4 size, but these are nice double-sided maps. So that is everything. So you don't, I just wanted, as an example, I had these up, but you do need the dice, or, your own set of polyhedral dice, and just, use a little chart to figure out what you're rolling, because there's a couple of things that give you multiple successes, so you'll need to refer to those. So that is all of the content. Dice you'll need separately, so this is everything that is included. And like I said, you'll need a copy of the starter rules from the starter set, which you probably will have if you played the first case file. I don't know how you could actually jump to the second case file, although you can. If you haven't interacted with any of these characters in the book itself, they let you basically jump to different parts of the relationship, with them, because they all will have survived. No one will have died in case file 1 because you didn't play it. But I think to get the full story, and especially the reveals won't be the game runner will have to be explaining a lot more to you about why this person is significant, because you haven't had any interaction with them. So yeah, it's a tight little adventure, but everything you need to play. So you'll either be carrying over the characters, the NPCs, the pre-gen player characters from the first case file. In our case, we created our own, and I think it worked well because it really gets the players much more invested in the characters and what's happening to them. So when they're making those moral decisions, or they're worried about about being killed, or mentally losing it, it seems like they are a bit more invested and care a bit more than a character that they've just gotten kind of used to over the course of a first case file. Okay, so this is the moment where you need to jump to this time code here, because we're going to go through page by page and just kind of talk a little bit about advice for game masters, so game runners, in this game for running this case file, and kind of the problems we came up against, and how how our players dealt with it. You can watch that on the stream, of course. So skip forward if you are a player and are interested in playing this, because we will be spoiling this adventure. Refer your game runner, or whoever will be running this game for you, to those live streams, and also to this section of the unboxing. And they'll have an idea of if they're interested in following these pre-written case files, or if they want to do something themselves. If this sounds like, no, we don't really want to head that way, we're more interested in strictly crime investigation, and not this like sprawling narrative, which is what the case files are kind of leading you into. So here we go. So case file 2, Fiery Angels. All right. So players, look away, skip ahead. All right. So the interesting thing, so we had a new character added, a third player joined. So we had a new character, so we did character creation and got them up to speed with what had happened with the first case file, because it would have been common knowledge at the LAPD. And of course, the things that weren't shared with the LAPD, that player wasn't privy to, unless the players explained it to them later. This case file starts with a starting scene, and I think there's a really good reason for it that you'll see soon, but you are brought this mysterious employee who's messing around at Wallace, and you have to give them an old VK-style empathy test, because they're strange. They're very strong, And for some reason, they were trying to get into the memory vaults at Wallace, and it seems like Wallace might be dropping this problem on your lap to deal with. So that's why they give you, there's a card that's at the empathy test table. And then, of course, they give you, and here's this reproduce. So in the book, they reproduce a lot of the handouts as well. So you can kind of, the game runner can get an idea. So here's the test questions, example test questions, and you go through, I think it's like a 3 out of 5. So if you, it's a opposed roll against the prisoners, the suspects, I guess, the suspects' abilities as well. And they give you responses for the prisoner suspect. And you need to choose ahead of time. So this is kind of the, okay, so you have this, you're talking to this suspect, you got your newspaper for the day. Things don't go great with this prisoner. It takes just a few questions. If you're successful with 3, you've got a pretty good idea of whether or not they're human. And if you get to 5, you've got pretty positive results, 5 successes, pretty good results. But things he then, similar to Leon Kowalski, goes nuts and starts attacking. And so the person giving the test is specifically attacked, and anybody else that runs in to assist. And since he's quite strong, his stats are quite high. And he's not supposed to survive, but that's not an easy thing to do. So I had to add some interesting details. He's not supposed to survive. Then after that failure in the morning, you go into Holden's office, and he, is pretty disappointed that you didn't get any information. You may or may not have some successful information from the empathy test, but the suspect is probably dead. May not be, though. He wasn't in our case. And then you start to talk about, so Wallace has shared some information with Holden, and he shares it with you, and this whole mystery of bootleg replicants starts to unravel, or starts to reveal itself. So there is people that have stolen technology that are able to produce replicants that are in every way identical to humans if you're just testing them on a kind of a medical examination level. But they did find out that the old empathy tests do work on them because they don't have implanted memories. So they that is revealed very easily with the old VK, the Voight-Kampff test. And that's what you're running. So that's why it's a little bit suspicious and an odd situation. So what you are doing is you need to choose in your group of these players, either the pre-gens from the first case file or the players' original characters that they rolled. You need to choose one of them to have a copy because these bootleg replicants now are capable of copying people, and what they are doing, obviously this is a first step in whoever this group is. This is a first step in them trying to infiltrate Wallace and get more technical data so they can make better replicants, because of course Wallace has all of the old information from Tyrell. The Tyrell Corporation data was sold to Wallace, so they have all of the information. So one of your players needs to be chosen as a person that has a copy of them running around that is a bootleg replicant. And they say you should choose a human. And so we only had one human, so I had to choose Perez, unfortunately, had a copy running around. And in this meeting as well, you meet from the PC game, which that was a funny choice, McCoy. So this is the character you play in the 90s PC game. But nobody's playing him. He's an NPC, and he's in this meeting, in this briefing with Holden, and he's going to be kind of working the case in parallel with you. And it doesn't have a lot of respect for you young guys. He's an old veteran, and so he is on the case of these bootleg replicants. And so the confusing part, and you might need to read this a few times to kind of get up to speed, is there are characters that you've dealt with before or that exist in this world in NPCs, and there are also copies of them running around. So the copies have these biblical names because the person that made these copies sees them as their prophets. They refer to them as their prophets. So you've got people, so two names. So the first time I read through, it's a little bit confusing because Noah's doppelganger. So basically, Noah is the name of the copy of one of your player characters that's running around. And just like the other case file, you are tracking time, and they give you the countdown events that you'll be up against. And then depending on how many players, just like the first case file, things happen with different timings. So the more players there are, the shorter the amount of time they have, and the faster they have to move. But because there's 3 of them or 4 of them, they can cover more ground than just 2. So at some point, you may need to give the character that's suspected to have a copy, and they're suspected to be a replicant when they've thought they were human the whole time, an empathy test. So those are the rules for giving your player characters the empathy test. And then there's interesting things like leveraging assets. So NPCs from the first case file, if they're still alive, whether or not you had communication with them, you can actually roll on this table, or so depending on the successes, they can have these as assets to figure out what's going on. And then there are 2 sets of downtime events now. Downtime events come in home and street, depending on where you spend them, where your player characters spend them. But the doppelganger, the character that has a copy of themselves, has a separate table to roll on because they may run into their copy, or their copy might call them on the phone or something like that. And then, the guidelines for promotion and humanity points. So promotion points are, getting in good with the LAPD, doing your job well. Humanity points, of course, are when you go against them, when you are human, when you spare people, when you release replicants, when you see, the good in people or don't want people to be punished just because they are man-made. And so here's the main characters that you're dealing with. So Ellis Vale, whose prophet name is Jeremiah, but he was an employee of Wallace that was duplicated. And here's Ray McCoy from the PC game, the grizzled veteran detective. And he's a copy as well. And then Noah is the copy of your character. And then, of course, Kel or Quell. I went with Kel, but I think Quell is, I think it's French, is a more useful name. She's been copied as well. Her copy's name is Miriam. Neander Wallace has been copied as well. Spoilers, players, please turn away. Neander Wallace has been copied as well. His prophet name of his bootleg replicant copy is Amos. So there'll be references to both names throughout this, and it gets a little bit confusing because you have to remember who is who. And then the person that you thought was dead from the first case file, she may have been taken into custody, though. It's possible she could have survived, but I think they say she must die. But, you never know how these things happen. So Lilith Tyrell makes a reappearance. So, that's right. But you realize, You realize that either the one that died or the one you have in custody is not the real one. This may be the real one. And so more of this immortal game unfolds. And so here's the locations. And I love that they do this. They give you a nice flow chart of the locations, and what evidence you find at these locations will lead to other locations, getting you closer and closer to the final confrontation, which is the end of your timetable. So here's all the stats for NPCs, and also things, evidence that you'll find in each of these locations, where they take you, how you attain them, if it's a roll, if you just see it laying on the floor, those sorts of things. Also all the locations, and then running down Kel, and then, so all the different, other stuff, because there's 2 copies of, I didn't check to see, I didn't check to see, that's why there's 2 copies, because the ad has been torn off. Are you supposed to tear that? Interesting. I didn't see if it was. Okay, I got to check. I got to know. So there's 2 copies of the paper that you run into during the course of the adventure. Of course, you can buy the paper at any newsstand if your characters really want one. But I have to see. They gave us 2. So did they actually pre-tear one of them? They did. They printed it, though. Okay. So I didn't notice it missing anything. So, there is a torn-off ad. And they do include that. So you of course, Holden has the first one sitting on his desk, and then you come across this one and maybe are clued into where to go or what would be so interesting about that ad that the person would have torn it off. All right, sorry, I needed to know. Yeah, so they include 2 copies to help the investigators, your Blade Runners, find that evidence. Okay. And then again, yeah, so here's the paper with the torn off section that they do give you physically. That's cool. And then a flyer for Wallace, their NPC, and then the 2 Esper photos. So it's nice they put them on the same page so you know like what. So digitally that kind of, I had them as handouts and gave them in the wrong order. So immediately they got too much information. And you may notice Runsiter here. So Emil Runsiter is a character much younger in the PC game, but he's a recurring character from the PC game that runs the his little zoological, and he's fallen far because he used to sell real animals and now has only famous copies. So some other locations. This is someplace that we never got to, and I'm not quite sure. I saw one actual place say this is another possible Tyrell copy. So Amara Javari, but I'm not sure if it's just the art isn't great or if she is supposed to look, is she supposed to look like Lilith Tyrell? I don't think so. I don't know. They should have maybe made it a little more distinct, but maybe it is a clue that will carry into Case File 3. You're surrounded by copies of Lilith. We never made it to this location. There's not so much here and not a lot that leads you there. I think on the assets table, you can roll her. So you may, the DA, the assistant DA in LA, may be an asset. And then the Aurelian again with his butterflies. And of course, Doc Badger. And this location now. So this is the cover art, I think, for the upcoming Replicant Underground source book. And this location is the new, so the moon bus was landing on the the Hollywood sign near the Kipple in Hollywood, the remains of Hollywood, the trash pile that became Hollywood. And that was discovered and, of course, now compromised. So the Replicant Underground is getting people off-world now from the shanty. So the seawall comes into play. So there's a shanty town near the seawall, which you saw in 2049, the huge wall they constructed to prevent Los Angeles from being hit by tidal waves and hurricanes, typhoons, I guess, Pacific Ocean typhoons. So you do have some of these the Replicant Underground is involved again, and you have some of these radicals. So that's nice if this, that book is going to be coming out, of course, before Case File 3. So you could take, if you want more content or more in your campaign that's not strictly a case file, they can do some more investigating in this location, or starting with this location, then leads them deeper into the Replicant Underground. So the final confrontation is got some really interesting timing issues. So depending on who's alive, who's in custody, who you know is a copy and who you don't, basically there's a big Lilith reveal at the end here. She's still alive. Is this another copy? And there's a Neander Wallace reveal. But you quickly figure out, depending on how the confrontation with Lilith and her bootleg replicants goes, then the real Neander Wallace enters at the end and kind of just cleans up with his house, his house bodyguards, his security. And so you start with Kel's office. So the timing is interesting. If you figure out they're headed toward Wallace again to make they've infiltrated more deeply and they're making a bigger strike now. That's what the final confrontation is. You meet Kel at her office. And depending on when you do, it's Kel or her copy. So you can save her or she can die. And then she's helping Neander, and who is also a copy, but then, of course, it's revealed. So there's this is the location of the fun. You can see the combat zones kind of drawn. So you have kind of 4 zones to deal with. And people were getting ready to throw grenades, especially sonic grenades indoors. And I was warning them, anybody in here is going to be hit by that. So it may not be as effective. So Lilith can make her escape. She can be brought into custody. She could even, this second Lilith could even be killed. So it just depends. So yeah, you have a kind of Deus Ex Machina Neander Wallace entry at the end of here to kind of clean up. And so it's all depends on how the confrontation went down with the guards, because they're using, because they have fooled Wallace, they have Wallace security guards or possibly, compromised guards on their side. And that's it. And there's the aftermath of how it goes. And they kind of, let you know. So of course, more Wallace cover up. Is Lilith Tyrell still around? So she may have escaped. She may be in custody, or she may be dead. So I think we ended up with her in custody. So the detectives will have her at the beginning of the next to question. So how did it go? This is still for game runners. We had some things that hung over from the previous session. So Sarah, Lilith's the daughter, the copy of Lilith, her daughter, in that first case file existed. One of our player characters, Amor, was taking care of her. So she comes into this, comes back again. And also I tried to change the stakes a little bit. And actually, because they even suggest that replicants may be seduced by what Lilith is saying and may want to leave with her. Of course, then that character is not playable anymore because they basically leave the game. You can't play as a replicant yet. So, they suggest that you may be able to, with this message of liberation for replicants, seduce some of the player characters away. I wanted to make the final confrontation a little bit more, have some more decision there, because the previous, in case file 1, the confrontation didn't happen. They never got there. They figured things out and shut it down before the moon bus, before the stakeout at the moon bus. So that never happened. For this one, I had Cal, the kind of the PR rep. I had them try to get romantically involved with one of the replicant detectives, and you couldn't quite tell what her motives were. But I wanted that situation where they went there and they were dealing, because you do kind of get a spy versus spy version of Cal, that the character has to decide who they think is the real one, and there's a hidden role, so their instincts may be right or wrong, and you don't tell them if their feeling is if their gut is wrong. So I wanted to kind of bring those stakes up a little bit by having a kind of an outside of the case file connection, like a similar social connection, which is a little odd because that Cal character is very cold. But I wanted the stakes to be a little bit higher, because I didn't think that the Neander Wallace reveal was going to be so amazing, or that the Lilith reveal was going, because they felt like they were getting they were catching on. So it's a bit difficult. So we never got to any sort of combat or confrontation at the shanty town. So basically, you start off with this with the Ray McCoy character, who's a copy of Ray McCoy. Ray McCoy is tied up in his apartment. And there's a confrontation at the shanty town. So there's like a penultimate, not final confrontation, and then the final confrontation at Wallace. So that kind of mini boss that you deal with is McCoy at the shanty town hunting down the renegade copy of one of your player characters. Unfortunately, they, because of their downtime events, interacted directly with their copy and killed them dead on the spot. So Ray McCoy had no way to track, but they did have clues leading them to the shanty town. So they just kind of walked around and interviewed people, without much purpose and without much evidence leading them anywhere else, and then got called to Wallace at the end for the final confrontation. So it's a little bit tricky. I didn't mind it not working out in the case file 1. This time it felt a little bit tricky and frustrating that I couldn't kind of do one then the other, like have a decision about the copy and then have a decision about what to do about Wallace. So yeah, that was a little a little interesting. So you can watch that if you want to see how we kind of navigated that. Watch the live streams of the case file 2, and also the opening scene, the beginning scene where you have this compromised employee of Wallace. The starting scene here. I think this is it's really important because if one of the characters is copied, they might take a critical injury, and which is what happened. A lot of the characters had critical injuries from this first fight because he's very strong. And all of the player characters got involved. They eventually subdued him, but one of them broke their arm and one of them had a gouged eye. So they had these things that marked them as, the original version. So when the copy shows up and his arm isn't in a sling or he's not, it doesn't have a bandage on his head, it helps a lot to kind of clue in the characters that this isn't, you're interacting with someone that is a copy of someone you think you know. So that I think works out really well. So make sure if you can injure them in the first scene. I think that works really well for the later scenes when the only discernible difference between the player character and this doppelganger character is the injury that they took in that first starting scene. All right. So, this was a lot of fun to run. It took some time to kind of get it all in your head, like where they would go and what they would do and how things should be revealed. Ray McCoy and the fact of the doppelganger got revealed pretty early in our playthrough of this, which I think worked okay. But if you can kind of like slowly pace it and reveal things without railroading them or kind of cheating their any of their success, I think that would work better as if the pieces fell into place because things happened pretty fast and they were kind of behind. They were kind of playing catch up in a lot of ways of things that had already happened, so they didn't catch anybody in the act of a lot of things. But the other fun thing is that the suspicion will build toward the person that has a doppelganger running around, the copy of themselves, replicant copy running around. So they will probably be asked at some time to do an empathy test. So that's fun because especially if it's the player character that did the empathy test in the starting scene, they're asked to do it to them. They has to submit to one themselves. And then of course, don't forget your replicants have to take their empathy tests. It's the, not the VK, but the different version. So it was a lot of fun. I think a really great follow-up and a really interesting ideas. And I'm so curious how Case File 3, because I think it's only going to be a trilogy. So I'm curious how Case File 3 will reveal itself. All right. So Game Runner section, spoiler section over. So overall, I think this is a nice looking product. I've read through this multiple times in the digital version, and you do get a digital version ordering the physical as well. It's very playable. I'm sure there will eventually be modules and things available on VTTs that will have all of the stuff implemented, but enough characters carry over that if this isn't out yet on the VTT that you're using, but you've played the first case file on that VTT, there's a lot of NPCs that carry over, a lot of locations. So you have a lot of stuff there. There's not that much you need to implement. And so that works well. The digital content they give you is enough to actually start playing right away. You don't have to wait for somebody to finish the official, components for your VTT. There's not a lot in the box. I think the price is still pretty decent, though. I think it retails for like 40 US, 30 something, maybe 39 US. It's a well-written case file. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, especially if you played the first one. This is a nice, things carry over, so decisions that you made in that first case file, players, will have consequences in this one. NPCs that you just, did terrible things to are not going to be around to help you or give you any information this next time around. And I think this is only the timing of this is only a month later. So not a lot has changed with the players. The first case file is still pretty fresh. So if things happened, where your replicant character and you're, kind of distressed about working as a Blade Runner, that's, still very much in mind by the time you get to case file 2, and they introduce some new things in the world that are challenging. And for the sharp-eyed fans of Blade Runner media, there is some appearances of more of the PC. We had Bullet Bob in Case File 1. So we've got some more fun PC game appearances in Case File 2. So yeah, the quality of everything is great. The dice, they have, dice, if you're just doing dice rollers, it's nice. The symbols make it really nice to instantly recognize successes. So you're not looking things up. So you get more cheers if you're rolling dice with the little symbols on them. You get more cheers immediately at the table because people aren't like, wait, that's how many? Is that over? Is that, you're not doing any checking. So it's worth it. And unfortunately, though, I think you'll need 2 sets unless you just want to pass around 1 set all the time, which is a little frustrating. But yeah, so it's D 6 through 12. So 6, 8, 10, and 12. And like you remember from the first part, they're ranks A through D. This was a lot of fun. I really think it's a nice continuation, and they are leading us to some sort of interesting climax. So yeah, I would suggest if you played the first and enjoyed it, and all you need, if you have the first one from the starter set, or if you have the first one from the Kickstarter, you've got all you need to continue. So yeah, definitely recommend it. Blade Runner is a great RPG because it's so limited. You're only playing Blade Runners, you're only doing investigation, and you're on a clock. And I think that leads to real creativity with the players, because that limitation makes them want to do a lot of stuff with the humanity or the replicant nature of their character. In these the small confrontations and things they'll have with NPCs. I think the narrowing the scope is a really good idea for this game, and a lot of interesting moral decisions come up about, and I think that's why they do the content warning, because it can be violent. The combat can be very bloody and violent, and there's a lot of moral questions and questions about your own humanity that come up in this, and so it makes for a very fun role play experience. So thank you for watching, and I'll put links to our playthrough of this case file, and of course in Case File 1. So if you are curious, it won't spoil anything because you've already played it. Take a look at our Case File 1 playlist as well to see how we how we handled that and who survived and showed up in our Case File 2. And yes, and send your anybody that would be interested in running the game for you to this video, and they'll get a little run through of the adventure and just a little bit of a look out for how to approach running it. So thank you for joining me. This is Upturned Table. So Upturned Table on YouTube and Twitch and all social media. And please check out our Patreon. So patreon.com/upturnedtable. If you want to support what we're doing, get first access to a lot of things. And just subscribing to the YouTube channel will get you notifications about when we go live for our actual plays. We're currently playing Dune, the Modiphius 2D20 RPG on the channel. So it was great. Great to see the physical version of this as usual. Always nice high quality stuff from Pre-League, just too glossy for for my lighting setup. And we will see you next time. Goodbye.